Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited. We have a great panel that we've put together with a wide variety of different MLSs by both region and size. And so we've brought this panel together because they have done a great job and put a lot of thought into putting rentals and really placing an emphasis upon them. So we're going to look forward to hearing some of their thoughts and kind of learning what they've done to be successful. And hopefully we can learn and have some takeaways here from that today. So also just a little bit about myself. So my name is Michael. I'm with RentSpree, CEO. And so for those of you who don't know, RentSpree provides a rental integration for MLSs. And today was a big milestone. We just launched our 30th integration today. So thank you. Thank you. And it's just about over a year that we did that. So it's been really refreshing to see how the industry has taken notice and start catering more to rentals. So before we kind of get started with the panel, I'm just going to give a quick State of the Union on the rental industry for everyone to kind of see that. And then we'll dive in and we'll get to some great content with these folks here. So we'll get started. So yeah, so first we'll do the agenda, do some panelist introductions, we'll do the discussion, and if we have time at the end, we'll also do some Q&A. So to get started, just getting a little bit of a broad strokes on rentals in the US. So right now, in total, there's about 140 housing units in the US. And of those 140 million, about 35% are rentals. So it's a pretty big chunk right then and there. But what's interesting to note is really seeing back to 1975, there's just been a sustained upward swing in rentals that have been going on since that time. And so you can even see, it's kind of hard to see right here, but between 2005 and 2010, there was a little bit more of a notable jump, which of course, due to the financial crisis there. So that kind of also increased the growth trajectory that we see with rentals up until today. And further, we can expect that things like COVID and other economic conditions will kind of continue that swing and increase the growth even more of rentals for a variety of reasons where, like I said, economic factors that may contribute to that, and then on top of that, just people liking to be more mobile and everything. So it's a really exciting industry to be in, and really like something that I think the MLSs will do a great job to embrace more and more as time goes on. So the first thing that I want to talk about is to dispel kind of like a misconception, which is when people think of rentals and they think of like these huge multi-million-dollar corporations, these huge property management companies. And so while they are a huge part of the rental market, that's really only 50% of the market. And so the other 50%, we call the long tail rentals, are actually the mom and pop landlords. And so these mom and pop landlords, they may own 1 to 2 rentals for income purposes. And so this is really the area and the segment of the market that has not been addressed much. And what's notable about this segment of the market is that you can see that they tend to emphasize more on single-family rentals, of course. And so single-family rentals are also among all the rental units. Single-family is the largest growing segment of those. And like I said, they're what's been owned by the mom-and-pop landlords. And coincidentally, mom-and-pop landlords, as we know, are also the individuals who are most likely to need an agent to help them with their rental business, because they may not use technology, they may not have access to the legal forms, knowledge and information that they need to be a rental professional, or even like they're not property managers. These are just, like I said, mom and pop landlords, so they're very likely to work with agents, and this is where there's a huge opportunity for agents to embrace these type of activities to help grow their business and make contact with lots of interesting clients. And so that brings us to the last section that I'll cover today before we move to the panel. But really, when RentSpree has done studies, so we've conducted a study recently, we polled, it was about 600 agents, and we found that agents that have been in business for more than 3 years are 3 times more likely to work with rentals on a consistent basis. And so this also sheds a light on how important rentals can be for the longevity of agents, helping them to build their business and build a strong foundation for success over time. And so the reasons why agents handle rentals are, number one, of course, compensation, and this is widely known. However, and what we'll talk a little bit about today is how compensation for rentals tends not to be super high. However, as you know and can imagine, sometimes a little bit of income from that rental commission, maybe it could be a couple hundred to a couple thousand, it's still enough in a lot of cases to really tide them over, get newer agents started, kind of sustain them between lulls. So it's a great opportunity. You can close these transactions much faster than a sales transaction. And also, if you have less experience and don't have a large network, it's a lot easier to have a landlord or a renter work with you as an agent rather than trying to find these buyers and sellers for multi-million-dollar homes. So it's a really great way to get their business flowing. And then that leads to really another thing, which is lead generation. So agents that work with rentals also oftentimes are able to convert their renters and keep a relationship going until the time when that renter becomes a first-time home buyer. And so this is the key and the most important reason why agents really work with rentals. However, also from the study, which there's some findings in the white paper here that you all have, but we know that agents don't tend to do a great job maintaining those relationships that they once established with these renters. So this is also something important and something that RentSpree is constantly working on helping and being able to kind of establish those relationships more strongly between the agent and their renter client. And so with renters, oftentimes the only agent that they might know is their agent that helped them with the rental. So it's logical that they would go back to that agent when the time comes to buy. So this is a great opportunity for agents to make a strong first impression when they're working with rentals. And so without further ado, we'll do a quick intro on the panelists here. So let's see. So first on the panel, I wanted to introduce Monica Pena. So Monica is the CEO for Greater Mcallen Association of Realtors, which is a medium-sized association in Deep South Texas. Her association has the unique honor of being the first in the country to integrate RentSpree into one of the main MLS vendors in the country. So So with that being said, I just want to have everyone just give a quick intro, and then also I want you guys to stage for everyone before we get into some of the details, but I want you guys to share just a little bit about your organization's stance as it has pertained to rentals in the past. So we can start with Greg and work down the line here. Just quick intro.
Yeah, so Greg Manship with Beaches MLS. We have about 41,000 members currently. We do, obviously, in the South Florida market, have heavy rental inventory. We have about 5,000 to 6,000 active listings in our MLS right now of rentals, and they range from seasonal, off-season, short, long-term, and so we're in the midst right now of just trying to do an overhaul on our rental. We know the demand, as the stats say, is getting greater for rentals, and so we're taking a deep dive into our rental category and determining what is the hang-ups that is preventing inventory from getting into the MLS. What are some of the things that are hang-ups of the agents getting those rentals turned around in the MLS? What are the hang-ups with the technology? So that's kind of what we're going through now.
Hi, I'm Divina, and like you said, I'm with Bridge MLS, and we cover a portion of the Bay Area, which is Oakland, Berkeley, Emeryville, Piedmont. So we also have agreements with several of the MLSs in the Bay. And if you're familiar with the Bay Area, we're kind of fragmented in that we're trying to get along. But the rental market in ours on the MLS, we have a few properties there, but we're still trying to figure the whole rental situation out, right? And rental, we did bring on this product not too long ago, and we have a really good adoption rate on it, but we're trying to start encouraging the rental units to get onto our MLS because of the market is so high, right, for sales, and rentals are becoming stronger. And so this is a very important topic for us to have this discussion, to start really encouraging our members to embrace the rental side and encourage them to put those in. So I'm really excited to be part of this conversation and start working with our members to encourage them to embrace the rental side of our system.
Hi, everybody. I've been in the industry for about 5 years, and I have a medium-sized association with about 1,600 members. And if any lesson can be taken from that is doesn't matter the size of the association or the experience of the executive, any association can be innovative. Tools and resources to them, to the membership. Last year, we all saw, industry and inventory being reduced, right? And so we were with leadership discussions about, what do we do? We had to shift and pivot pretty quickly. And I was just so, blessed to have this tool presented to me. And I thought, why not? And the leadership supported us saying, we know that there's going to be an increase in rentals because of the inventory shortage, and we needed to address it. And so we brought the tool as quickly to the table as possible to make and integrate it. It's been a really good success because we worked very, unilaterally with our leadership to make it happen.
My name's Sarah Fogg, as Michael had said. I'm with New England Real Estate Network. We cover all of New Hampshire, all of Vermont. We're regional. We take listings all over New England and now in New York. So we stay a little busy. But rentals, I always feel like the MLSs have kind of put them on the wayside for a long time, and we sort of need to bring them to the forefront. And it's like Michael had said, you turn around and you get that lead generation out of it too. The compensation may not be that great, but down the road that compensation is really going to pay off. We've taken deep dives in it before. We had focus groups on how we can get things better. Some MLSs turn around and put, they leave list price in there for a rental. Well, it's really not a list price, it's a lease price. And they close them instead of marking them as leased. It's not a closed transaction. It's little things like that that we've played around with, and we're constantly looking to innovate it and to make it more palatable for agents to get in there. But there are some frustrations because some states don't require people to be licensed to do rentals. So there's other challenges that also have to be addressed as we go through this.
You can see it's kind of already come up a couple times here with really the compensation revolving around rentals. I think this is probably one of the most key elements that we might talk about, so I think that's a good place to start. So, Divine, starting with you, just want to know, what do you see in terms of rental compensation, and how is that really factoring in to, how many people are inputting rentals with Bridge MLS?
Yeah, so we do have a field for compensation where they can utilize that, and we do see that, our members do utilize it, but again, that's a tricky situation, right? So people will, they're looking for the big money because, we're in a high volume market, and so while that field is available, you're looking at users wanting to get the compensation for the high-end market. So they're not, you have those that utilize it and I see what you were talking about, you're right. If it's going to be utilized by people who are going to be looking for the fast money, and the newer users or the newer agents coming into the field. So that's going to be their biggest look that they're going to, those who want to close a deal fast. And so that's been the biggest thing, compensation. And so that's why they're not putting it in there, because they're not getting that compensation right away. And I think that's why they pull away from using it or say, it's not of a value to me. And I think if we can, your white paper, when I was reading it, that really stuck out to me. If we can show them the value of utilizing the system to say, look, this is going to help us with inventory. You can turn around and make that renter a buyer in the future. Or in a situation very similar to me, when I live in the Bay now, but I just purchased a home in Southern California because I go back and forth, right? So it was more cost effective to me to buy my home in Southern California, but I still live in the Bay, so I rent in the Bay, and I have a home in Southern California, so I'm both. I'm a homeowner and a renter. So, and especially today in this market, you have people telemarketing or telecommuting, not telemarketing, telecommuting now, right, where they can do both. And so I think we are having to impress on our members that we can we can have a different mindset in utilizing this system. And there is compensation still available in all different levels. So that's what we need to show them, that this can be utilized, that these systems can be utilized for that compensation. And by the way, I forgot to say that Bridge MLS is at 3,700 members. I forgot to throw that in before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And regarding compensation, I know like for Bridge MLS, is compensation required to offer when you're listing a rental?
It is a required field on our system, yes. Yeah, they have
And
to
it's
put
the
it
same
in.
for everyone, right? And what are you seeing in terms of what's being offered as splits as well? 'Cause
The split on it is that, yeah, I think they can go up to, and I think it's at like 6%. I think they can go all the way up to 6%, yeah, the percentage, so.
And also Sarah mentioned something interesting about the statuses of rentals, and so I'm curious if anyone else has seen challenges with statuses or people like having issues with changing rental statuses for, like rentals that are going into the systems as well.
Well, I think status, obviously, but this goes a little beyond status. I mean, it goes to the technology foundation of the platform. MLSs were built around a residential for sale platform, and so the challenges, again, are, people that are putting the rentals in, they want a way to report those. So, you've got these apps and things that go around the MLS that you can do so quickly for rentals and putting them in, adjusting the times, when they're available, et cetera, all the details. MLS systems still have some challenges because of the way it was built. And so there's a lot of turnover in rentals, and the agents are wanting to put that inventory in, but when something is closed, they want to be able to turn around and relist it real quickly because there's a big turnaround in those things. So, status, yes, but also there's also the technology of copying a listing and getting everything to copy and relisting it real quickly and suiting your platform so that it can accommodate rentals in a much better way. That's kind of what we're striving to do, pushing to do.
And I know that, like Greg, you have basically put together like a task force around rentals as well. Is that something that you guys have discussed there? And also maybe you can tell everyone what went into your decision to put together a task force, how long it's been around.
Yeah, basically it's a result of, we have a group that heavily do rentals, and we all got together, they got together based on feedback to us, and we said, well, let's sit down, let's figure out what are your hang-ups, what's preventing you from getting inventory in, what's preventing you from doing the job as quickly as you can using the technology. I hate having technology slow their business down, and so what are the hang-ups? So, again, we looked at and we're looking at field requirements. Do we have to have everything that's required for a rental that you do for a sale, for sale? No, you don't. So a lot of people have just basically replicated their residential, and we're looking at, hey, yes, some of those features and functionality are great, but for a rental, do we need to take that deep a dive on some of the properties? No. Just making the ability, again, as I mentioned, copy and relist the property real quickly. How can we create a workflow so that they can turn around these properties that are rented on a seasonal basis, and people are coming in renting them for January or February, and I can close that one out, relist it real quickly. So it's utilizing the technology and how we can bring that to our vendors to really relook at the way that rentals are handled in the MLS system.
Even weekly,
Weekly.
when you come up to that.
Yep.
I was just going to piggyback off what Greg said, because we even have in some markets where we need weekly rentals. Laconia has Bike Week. It's one of the third largest in the country, and there's weekly rentals on the water. And you've got to be able to turn those around, relist it quick, and get it going for the next group to come in. And if you don't set up appropriately for that rental amount frequency, then it's going to cause you problems in the long run. So it's a huge thing to analyze and look at, and then have focus groups, talk to people, and get your high-producing rental agents even and say, what are we not doing for you that we need to be doing, so that we can get more data in the system, because data's gold. That's what we all do. It's all about data. Well, if it's not all getting in the system, we're not doing something right.
And like regarding, Monica, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say the most irrelevant data is the one we don't collect.
Yes.
That makes sense. And I know, diving deeper into this discussion around which fields should be required in input, do any of you guys undergo practices to evaluate that, or any plans to do so? How do you guys think about that?
We took a dive, like I said, for us, it was back in 2013 when we had our focus group, and they let us know that we had some fields that were required that made absolutely no sense for rental because we had done like everyone else and just copied our residential over. So we went through with them and said, okay, what don't we need? But at the same time, they had to do some give and take. Their compensation is going to be required, period. Sorry, that's not even up for discussion. But what things can we make non-mandatory to make your life easier? So we did do a deeper dive with them and took care of that. And we have a suggestions process, so anytime they come up with us, they send an email in and we go through our process with it. So if we can, we'll accommodate the suggestions as much as possible.
We did a conversion of MLS systems in 2018, and at that time, we went through all the data fields and went through the rental properties and updated those and the useful ones.
Yours actually looks really clean.
Thank you.
And what was the process like when you kind of went through that, and how did you gather?
I have my MLS committee chair here, and he was on the task force, and he's got his hair back. Yeah. It was a long process, but as far as the rental properties and those data fields, I would say that took a couple of weeks of going through those specifically, and it's tedious. It's not easy. It's a process, but as you said, it's a much cleaner back end, so it's got us there. Now, do we need to probably reevaluate with some of the other items that are coming up? And yesterday I was in one of the sessions work groups that was talking about the irrelevant data fields, and maybe we need to go back and look at it again.
As for us, we work with 2 other MLSs in the Bay very closely, Bay East and Contra Costa, the Paragon Partners. And it's not a conversation that we have had yet, but I believe it's something that we need to look at. But we also follow very closely with the RESO group, and I know that they're having the conversation right now with the rental group.
That's right.
And we really do follow what they come up with the standards, because I think that's very important, right? Yeah. And then we also have our NorCal Alliance, which is 7 MLSs in the Bay that we also work with. But mostly we focus on the 3 of us, the Paragon Partners. And so we are going to have that conversation. I'm going to recommend that because the biggest thing right now is rentals are becoming more and more important because, again, the cost of housing is so high in the Bay. Unless most people, unless you're like most people in the Bay that can afford a $1 million, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, burned down property in the Bay.
Yeah.
Then we're all set.
And Greg, I know you talked a little bit about kind of revamping the technology revolving around rentals and input and kind of making it so that the MLS can be more competitive and comparable to technology software platforms. If you could wave a magic wand and make it a certain way, how would you want things to change in terms of like that whole process and the platforms that are available on the front end?
So when you're everybody here has worked with MLS vendors, so I mean, if I could wave a wand and get time to change things with MLS vendors, that would be my optimal wand to wave. But we're in South Florida. We're dealing. I'm at our MLS system. We're dealing with a couple of issues too. Is that we are a result of some mergers, and so we're running actually 2 different MLS systems, 2 different back ends that we manage with the rentals, and so and a data share on top of that. And so we have the challenges of making it work with 2 different MLS vendors, making the fields work with 2 MLS vendors, and then making sure that what we put in is also downstream. And so if I could wave a wand and make that all work together and optimally in a nice little perfect world, that would be speed. But I know the reality is that we have to just take this step by step and kind of push it, as we do, and come up again with the feedback that we get from our brokers and our agents, and then just kind of work step in step with our MLS vendors and slowly get where we want to go. So.
That makes sense. And I know one of the other things that we had talked about previously was the guidance, or maybe even the lack thereof of guidance, from maybe like state association and national level. And I'm just curious, have you guys, experienced any guidance that you got from them, or where could it be a little bit easier for you?
Well, are you okay, Rosemary? Yeah. No, I have not reached out to get any guidance, and I think that what my concern or big picture look at it, as some people like to say, is that there's a lot. I'm in the medium size. They're larger, much larger than me, but smaller than us. They're not going to make any changes or look at this unless they're mandated to. I mean, historically speaking, that's the way it works, and it's unfortunate, but that's the reality. They don't have the resources to do it, and so if they're not given the information and handed to them on a platter, they're not going to work on it.
Okay, so I'm going to do the opposite and say I don't like mandates. But I mean, there's some things you can mandate, right? You can say, we mandate you to put every listing into the MLS, right, that you come up with, and it can work on some cases. But then you have the situation where if you come down from the national level where you're saying that if you have a listing, you have to put it in, right? And then you have the situation where you have some MLSs that don't follow the national mandate. And so you've got that going on, right? And then you've got the pushback then from the brokers, and you've got the brokers that, that say I'm not going to follow that mandate, and you've got that all coming down. And you've got the states that are pushing, we've talked about this, you've got the states that are really anti-rental and are so pro-homeowner, and I'm not saying that we're not pro-homeowner, but again, you've got to start focusing on that mindset of when you're pro-rental, you're not anti-homeowner. And I think that that's what we have to work on. You've got to work on that mindset that, again, we're not pro-rental saying that we're anti-homeowner. We're just saying that we're pro-inventory. And that's the mindset we've got to come for, that we're just saying we're pro-inventory. We're just trying to get inventory into the MLS. We're trying to add data, clean data for our members that our members are getting. So if a member who is a registered subscriber or participant of our MLS has a listing, whether that listing is commercial or residential or a rental or a lease, please put it in the MLS, and let's provide them with a system and standards that are clean and accurate, and a system that will provide them the capability to do so they can do their job appropriately, and we have the data that is appropriate, clean, and accurate, that then can be syndicated out to the public in a way that allows them to do their job in a clean and in a fast and accurate manner. And that's all we're trying to do.
Yeah, and again, to incentivize, at the end of the day, you want to incentivize your brokers and agents to get data into the systems. So and that's where I get feedback from. I don't look at others than who I'm serving, which is my broker, and obviously their agents within. So how can we make it a good system to get data in? And how can we get a good system to have data that we can search, because there's ways of searching rentals that you don't search with residential for sale properties. And finally, how do you facilitate getting data to where the brokers want it? So in essence, we have also facilitated, I'm a big advocate of, if a broker approaches us and has no way of getting data to somewhere, that we offer that as a member benefit. And that's true with rentals as well. Right. Now, we do offer, as what we do is a transport agreement. So in essence, if a broker comes to us, they're not taking our IDX or that, but we are transporting their listings on behalf of that broker to where they want it. And if we facilitate an easy way of getting data into the system, we also facilitate an easy way of getting those rental data to where they want it location-wise, I think that helps incentivize getting some data into the systems.
I don't like mandates either, to be honest. The truth of the matter is, though, if we didn't, we incentivize members all the time. We incentivize brokers. We say, enter listings, residential listings. But if they were doing it, we wouldn't have any CCP violations right now, and we do. So that's the reality. I don't like them, but that's just what we have to do sometimes.
I think one of the other things too is getting the agents to put their listings in, but to have the conversation with them or put it out in newsletters and communication that, hey guys, you really need to be doing and putting your rentals in the system, because there's nothing more frustrating for me than going on Facebook and seeing some brokers, sometimes former board of directors, that are putting out there going, hey, I need a 2-bedroom, 3-bath rental for my clients. Does anybody know any? And I'm like, did you look in the MLS? I mean, and if you didn't, then maybe we should be having conversations so that is the place that you go to look. Right. But we need to have those conversations, and we need to communicate more effectively with the membership to turn around and get them to put them in the system.
So I guess it's communicating the rentals and the need for them and why it's beneficial to the members and to the consumers to do so.
Yeah, and I think all of this really requires like a change in mindset from possibly the top down, where it is thinking of rentals, like Divina had mentioned, that it's not something separate from home ownership, but rather it's a step on the journey to home ownership, that this should be catered to and addressed the right way. So there have been others that we work with where the MLS system, like Bright is a good example, they require rentals to be entered into the system. And I know that can be a tough kind of Band-Aid to pull off and a tough decision to make. But I'm just curious, what are your guys' thoughts on thinking about more drastic changes like that? Is that something that you guys would ever entertain, or what's kind of the thought there?
I would consider it, as this work group is coming down now from RESO, and RESO sets those standards. I would, if, again, I work with my Paragon partners, I work with the NorCal Alliance, I work with CAR's rules and regs that come down from NAR. So by following those steps, I definitely would consider it. And because you're right, it's like pulling that Band-Aid off. So once the standards are set from RESO, and I, again, because I follow those patterns, right? And because I throw the blame on everybody else. I set those standards, and then I say, look, the standards have been set. So now we have the standards, and then the rules start to come in, and that's what I do, because being in this industry for as long as I have, I'm a policy person. I'm a rules person. And so that is how I have been trained, and that is how I train my people. And I say, look, we follow these rules, we follow these standards, we follow these, because that is how you don't get yourself in trouble. And that's how they've been trained, right? The brokers and the agents, because they follow the policies, they follow the rules. They are held to a higher standard, and therefore I am too. So that's the best way to do it. And I would do that if I had the rules in place and the standards in place.
Yeah, and obviously, from a standards point, you talk about incentivizing people to get data in. So you standardize and go down that road where you are standardizing. What better way of getting ancillary services plugged in where you can send the rental data and third-party software that can utilize the rental data? What better way to incentivize getting data in than to go down the standards route?
I like that when we're looking at setting standards that we are looking at all the different locations that we can, and that is whether it's a broker-owned MLS or it's an NAR-connected MLS, that we look to all those locations, all those people, all those companies, and we need to shift ourselves a little bit faster to make those changes as well. Otherwise, we're going to be left behind.
Makes sense.
I would agree as well with standards. That's huge for it. And I'm sure our leadership would look at a possibility of that. But part of it is we have to show the agents the benefits of putting their rentals in. They know the benefits of putting their sales in. And for us, I think it's helped us adding rent spree in. Because that benefit, that having that report, not having to turn around and go do all of that work behind the scenes
And it makes the compensation more worthwhile if you're not spending the time on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you just gained how many, 40 hours worth of phone calls or something that you don't need because you just have a report and it's done for you automatically? That alone should start having more rentals and more agents utilizing that. But again, it's a communication piece, and the standards, as the standards come down and the policies come down, it helps us in the long run.
So I think getting the rentals into the system, and now you have some really good data, right, and everyone can kind of come together revolving around that. One of the things that we've seen a little bit, like there's some talk of platforms that may, source listings from like other sources, questionable websites, Craigslist, things like that. And so like anyone want to talk about what can go wrong with that, and really like why is it important to ensure like listing quality, and why is that a like core responsibility of the MLS, and it should really like extend to rentals too, right?
Well, I think we had this conversation because Greg and I were both talking about it, like how we were looking for rentals when we moved, right? And I think it was kind of ironic that both of us worked for MLSs and we had to look at Craigslist for listings, for rental listings. It was pretty pathetic. And you get these calls from people that say, hey, I found this listing on Craigslist, and we look it up and it's like on our MLS and it's like a multi-million-dollar listing and it's a fake on Craigslist. Rent me for $1,500 a month. And you're like, not in the Bay Area. And it's funny because this is what's happening in our industry. People are scraping our listings and then putting them on Craigslist and renting them out, and then you have a squatter or stuff like that. And that's what's scary. And I think if we use these as examples of why these listings need to be in the MLS, because what happens is this happens and all it does is make our members look bad. Because no matter what you try to tell the public, no matter what you try to tell the consumer, it still backfires on us. It still makes us look bad. And it makes our MLS look bad too, because the data is coming from our MLS, or it's being scraped off of Zillow or Redfins or places like that. So it makes us look bad, it makes them look bad. So if we can get this data onto the MLSs and then let that feed out, in a clean way, then we're controlling it. So we have to take control.
Yep, absolutely. And the MLS has built, obviously, who's coming to the MLS now for residential real estate sale data. It's all the third parties, and they know. They've migrated, and they know that the best source of data, the clean, accurate data, for the most part, the best source is the MLS. And so we have certainly an opportunity that we've built in the residential for sale space to extend that to also the rental space. And that reputation of that clean quality data can certainly be extended to the rental space. And over time, the trust in some of those sites that run that type of data can certainly be extended in the rental space as well.
Yeah, and it sounds like, you have something?
I was just going to say, the other thing that comes to mind when you say that about Craigslist and stuff is safety for the consumers themselves. Because if it's in the MLS, you've got an agent doing it, it's going to be safe. When you sit there and go out on a Craigslist or something like that, and I'm the same with Greg and Divine, I own a home and rent, as well. So it's a little nerve-wracking when you sit there and have to go to a site like that to look for a place to live and not have that backup, knowing that it's somebody who's a professional, it's somebody who does this.
There's a license number.
Exactly, there's a license number there. It's somebody with knowledge, so.
And just like thinking more so about how it really has to come from top down. So it's creating the incentive, and then I think the communication component is really key to communicate the benefits and the incentives. And I'm just wondering if anyone's got any top tips on being able to communicate this from the top down, because there's really many degrees of separation. And just so much fluff and so much noise that you kind of have to break through to get this messaging across, and that may not be the only message. It may not be the most important message of the day either. So how do you go about communicating effectively about certain things and sharing these benefits and incentives?
Yeah, I'll try first. Newsletters, of course. I know RDR, realtors don't always read, but we still love you. But newsletters, we utilize a YouTube channel. When we put Rensbury in place, we turned around and did a promotional video for it to show how everything works. And if you spotlight certain things, but you don't want to drown them in it per se, but hit it every once in a while, or, you know, have certain target dates and everything to start communicating things out and be more communicative with the people who handle rentals.
I went live, and I teased that there was on a certain date that we were going to have an announcement of a member tool, and then we did it in a private Facebook group that we have for just our members, and they, of course, immediately started getting text, emails, what's going on, what are we doing, and so on that day we made the announcement of our integration with Rent-Spree when we went live, and we had tutorials and videos that we had on certain dates, and it went really well, and we had a really good response rate. But that teaser live video is something that I find members tune into. They especially when we're doing it to our social media, and we can, of course, do it social media to Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat.
I can just say ditto, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
No,
Ditto.
you're good. You're good.
Yeah, ditto, and we did it on our sign on our Paragon page, and but we have, like I said, our members are using it and they love it. So right now it's going really well.
Yeah, and I think the key to communication obviously is showing, so you enter the listing once into the MLS, and what is the benefit of entering the listing in the MLS? So where is it going to go? What can we send? Where can we send it? What tools can you use within the MLS that's going to expose that listing for you? So you got to push those advantages of entering it into the MLS, and advantages where that's going to be seen, where who's going to be looking at it, and we communicate several different ways. We have several different platforms that we can do, and you've just got to hit the agents in different fashions, because we'll hit them like on a dashboard pop-up, or within a text message, or with an email, all those different ways, because somebody looks at communication one way and somebody looks at it another way. So you just have to find those ways to effectively communicate and just show that we're doing things for our rental listings that are going to give you that exposure that we've done with our for sale properties.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and one of the things we've been working on is looking at more like secondary analyses that we can do to see, like, hey, not only is there this new product that's out there, but there's a quantifiable benefit for using it, so that your time to close may be reduced by like X number of days by using like this new tool or this like new syndication or marketing practice that's going into these rentals. So I think that's important as well to kind of quantify a little bit more in detail on what's the actual tangible benefit that you can realize from this, whether it's leads or just saving time or whatever that might be. And to finish up, we're going to have hopefully a couple minutes to open up for questions here. But just a quick question for everyone, like what's going on with your markets right now with rentals? What are you seeing? Because we have Florida, Northern California, Texas, New England, like just like anything that you guys are seeing that stand out, and then we'll open up for questions in a couple minutes.
Yeah, our market is hot. We've had, through the pandemic, our markets, our inventory is very low. So we have people that have traditionally looking for single-family homes are now looking at condos. People that are looking at condos or homes that have traditionally wanted for sale property are now looking to rent until they find something that they can, that they want to live in for a permanent way. So we have our rental market has also shot through the roof, just alongside our for sale market as well.
So our rental market, actually, like apartments and stuff, they took a dive a little bit in 2020, and now it's coming back up about 5 to 10%, and so it is coming back up in the areas. But and homes are, still are increasing, but we have a lot of rentals out there because, of course, so and of course the inventory is low, but we're still a hot market. So yeah.
With the eviction moratorium, it really put a damper on rentals and availability. And so inventory and rental availability really was reduced. So, but we do see a pickup happening in the last couple of months.
Market's still hot. There's still sight unseen offers going on. All of that jazz, the overpricing and rentals, there's not a lot available right now. And also because the moratorium, that killed the renter, the poor landlords. As they're dealing with that. I feel for the people, but I also feel for the landlords because they're still having to pay upkeep and all of that for those properties.
Yep.
But there's just not a ton available out there. Yep. I'm actively looking for my son in Boise and my daughter locally, and what is available is so expensive that they can't afford it. So I think that makes it hard too because they know they can get more money.
Come to California, we got a lot.
Yeah.
Because they're all moving to Boise.
Yeah.
Talk to me if you
Well, we're going to open up for questions. Just a quick round of applause to our panelists already. So far, great job, guys. Rosemary.
I have a question for the panelists. I too have integrated Rent-Spree into our system, and I have found we have made it optional. It's not a default. They have to actually choose yes or no. And we've named the field Rent-Spree, and I have seen a dramatic increase in rentals in my MLS. My MLS is not required for lease properties, which is the norm, but since I've implemented Rent-Spree Pro, I have seen a drastic increase in lease properties in my MLS, and I think I talked to the guys here, and they were surprised at the amount of rentals that would be in the New Orleans area. But I was wondering, you having implemented yourself, have you seen an increase in a positive movement of rental properties in your MLS after your integration in Rent-Spree?
Well, we're a popular rental market, so the number of rentals may have come up, but we have really had an increase. I mean, Michael will attest that when we put in Rent-Spree and we added the links and the integrated it into the input sheet, yes, our numbers have shot through the roof. And we just had a webinar last week, and he showed us the numbers, and it was like, step up. Now, what we're having some feedback from is that we've put Rent-Spree in as defaults on some areas, but we've had to kind of dial that back a little bit. We're still trying to find the line because we've had some brokers say that they have in-house services that why do I want my agents to see this as the default? And so we've put some default requirements around the field, but we've also put it like to blank, and so they have to actually choose yes or no. And so some of that is a political move based on some of the feedback.
Have you seen it change? Because actually mine has increased after that went into effect. We took the default out. They have to choose yes or no, and ours went up after we took that out.
Yeah, we've started now the advice from you is to make a default of yes.
No, default blank is my advice to you. That's the Rosemary model.
But make it mandatory.
Default blank, but mandatory. They can choose. They always choose.
We'll make them choose.
Yes, we have increased.
Ditto.
New kids on the block. We've only been live for just over a month, so I can't wait because I know it's going to increase. I know we're going to get more.
Michael?
Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I applaud the utility because to me this is definitely a game of attraction. The challenges I see are, first of all, playing FSBO for lease by owner. What's our percentages, right? I don't know what the percentages are. I would assume that it's much higher than for sale by owner because of the economics.
Right.
So if, say, commission is 1 month's rent, right? as soon as I put it in the MLS, my, $1,200 is now $600, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm gonna need to split something of that.
Correct.
And I'm quickly getting to the point where if I've got utility that takes away risk and saves me money and time, then that helps offset that demotivation factor. So I think that we got two things. One, we've been talking about motivating the member who gets the deal to put it into the MLS, which I think is a very tough customer right there. And it makes perfect sense to me why it's not required. I think that would be a hard thing to get done.
Yes.
But also, how do you attract the for lease by owner? Because like our examples that we have of the problems, those are problems on the buy side. The sellers don't really have too many issues by comparison of putting their listing into Craigslist. Or like in California, Westside Rentals, which of course CoStar bought, but
Yes.
they've been around forever, and you would just throw your property in there for lease, and you'd get yourself somebody to lease it, and maybe use some utility to help you screen it, and bada bing, bada bang, and you're done. So to me, it's a kind of a complex puzzle, and I'd like to know more about that for lease by side, and what we're doing to draw more business to our realtors, and then what about that aspect of sharing such a small commission?
So I hear what you're saying, Robin. See, and that's the issue. How do you take that listing for the listing agent and just be able to help them market it straight to the consumer, right?
Well, is that, because we're a two-agent platform.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, right?
Right.
So do we become a one-agent utility?
Right.
By some fashion?
So originally, what we had was that listing would go out for the syndication and would go to a platform like the Zillow platform or the Realtor.com platform, and they could then market that lease listing without having to just utilize the platform itself, utilize the MLS platform as its only marketing platform, right? They could utilize the syndication platforms as their marketing platform to the public. And now what we've lost is they still can do that. They still have that capability, but you're right. They don't want to have to pay that compensation, right? And so we have to somehow make it so attractive to them and offer them some way of marketing it without them making it attractive to them so they don't lose that money out of their pocket. See, and I see that's the problem.
If you do such an amazing job where you automate the entire process,
Yes.
the agent can get a small commission for doing nothing.
Exactly.
That's the plan.
That's the
'Cause,
plan.
you have like lease signing and everything.
I'm a little
Yeah.
facetious
Yes,
here,
but you're right. But you're absolutely right.
It goes back to what I applaud is
Yes.
that the more you facilitate this and the more you remove risk.
That's right.
Then the more that $600 for my effort becomes not all that bad.
That's right.
And there's always going to be that segment of the market that aren't going to want to deal with, because the commissions become so, to a price point that they're not going to put them in the MLS because it's not worth it to,
Right.
use an agent.
Yeah.
So there's a segment of that market. Are we going to get into the Airbnbs where we're renting out on a weekend basis? Not likely. It's like our group said, anything 30 days or under, we don't generally deal with, and it was pretty much a consensus that they don't deal with those just because the price point isn't there for them. So then you look at the system and say, okay, well, at least we don't have to get into an Airbnb situation from an MLS platform and the technology and formulate the technology to that, because in our area, they're not going to do anything under 30 days.
And that's where you have those ones that are the rapid rentals, right? That are renting out, like you said, the 30-day ones are the ones that are turnover so fast
Yeah.
that it just
Yeah.
almost becomes like really one.
But even with seasonal, there's a lot of turnover. There's a lot of turnover on listings with seasonal. And so, and again, too, there's so many nuances with the system, because somebody will put a listing in for seasonal. But that's not to say that if somebody comes along that they're gonna rent it annually, or vice versa, is that they can't get an annual renter, so they're gonna rent it on a seasonal or off-season basis. So, those are the nuances too that the system is, we've got to look at on how we handle that technology-wise.
Well, aside from us not having enough listings in our system,
Right.
having been on the renter side, the lesser side myself, there's definitely a problem to fix for them, because you have to go look in 5 different places.
There's not
and-
one to.
And do your own little deduplication and all that. And is that enough gravity?
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to sum things up, and for the second part of your question as well, which is how do you kind of get more of those for lease by owners as well? And so when you have these agents and you're able to minimize the time, then now instead of them taking a rental listing begrudgingly, they can now source landlords. And so if you help a landlord to purchase an income property, instead of just saying, all right, great, like go off and handle the rental, the agent can now offer to handle the rental for that investor on the income property that they just purchased. And so now you're going to expand the inventory this way by making things easy and, like you said, minimizing the time. As soon as you minimize the time, then it becomes a lot more palatable and worthwhile, given that maybe the commission may be at a certain level. And granted, at a certain point, if the commission is not high enough or the rental price is low enough, it's going to be not much of an incentive no matter what you do. But it's minimizing the time and then giving the agents this tool.
And I think actively partnered and going to those management.
Yep.
Am I not loud enough? Going to those, say, property management or something. I know I'm never told I'm not loud enough. I'm sorry. But to go and partner with them and say, listen, I've even got this screening program that's going to do all the work for you. Basically, here it is. They're going to pay this amount, and I'm going to give you a credit report. I'm going to give you the criminal background check. I'm going to give you the national eviction report. I mean, what property manager wouldn't sit there and go, yes, let's sign this, let's get this going, and now you're going to put my stuff in for me, and then maybe you set up a compensation based off of that. But it does give an option for it.
I think that's all the time that we have today, right? Yeah. Thank you guys so much.